Welcome to my show, Searching for Integrity. My name really is John Smith, and I'm searching for people with integrity. Why? Because our country suffers from IDD, integrity deficit disorder. Today, we, today we have an author and physician, Karl Robinson, MD. I'm glad to see him, glad to have him. Karl and I have known each other for at least 40 years. And you know that my son was 13 when he came over, and now he's 53. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's quick. It leaves me with quick math. And Karl is a guru in his business and what he knows in the science of all of this. It's I've been with him over the years, and it's been wonderful. I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world because this guy makes me well again. All right, so let's have a look at your book. Let's start with that, and then let's drill into the table of contents. I was always a table of contents person whenever I bring authors, but yours is quite stunning. I like it a lot. So what do you have about your table of contents? Easy, hard, where to put this, where to put that. Mechanics of putting the book together, I guess.
What's the question?
The question is, your table of contents, is that such that it is strictly, I can't, medicine. Let's just up it out. Which one do you like? You've got principles and practices. You've got testimony of the clinic. They just go on and on and on and on and on. And then I love it.
Thank you. Am I the first homeopath you've had on your program?
Yes, you are.
So maybe I should speak a little bit about what homeopathy is.
Yes. A surprise when I was talking to Mac yesterday. I told him about who you are and what you do, and he was elated. He's from India. We're talking to Mac. He's in India, my producer and guests. And then he started telling me all about homeopathic in India.
It's huge in India, huge. There's millions of people who are treated by homeopathy, more than any other country. And I think there's hundreds of thousands of homeopathic medical doctors. So it's a whole different scene over there.
I think it should. At first I thought, well, it must be a lot of patients, but then the people and the numbers themselves are probably looking around that maybe something comes back, goes back. I don't know. Yeah. But he was really proud to be having this, I can tell you.
Good, good.
So back to the table of contents. Did you have one that was more difficult than the other? Or did they all flow together?
Did I have one what?
The flow of all together. The book flows along chapter by chapter by that, and you outline the table of contents on that. I've got part one. Oh, I didn't even know this. And part one, parts in the parts, you've got another listing of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. I just not caught that. Well, let's look at that. Principles and practice of homeopathy. Testimony of the clinic. What do you think? Which one would you like to talk about?
I think we should talk a little bit about the principles of homeopathy,
Sure.
because it's quite different from conventional medicine. Conventional medicine we call allopathy, allopathy, which means other, and homeo in homeopathy means the same as. So in conventional medicine or allopathy, the treatment is designed to counter the illness, counter the symptoms. For example, if you have an infection, you're given an antibiotic, which means it goes against the infection, which is fine. It's just that's the way it is. And if you have high blood pressure, you're given an antihypertensive. Or if you're a bit crazy, you might get an antipsychotic medicine, and so on. So in conventional medicine, the treatment is designed to counter or go against the problem. Now in homeopathy, it's 360 degrees different. We select a medicine which corresponds to the symptoms. And we give a medicine which is known to cause the symptoms that the patient is suffering from. So let's say a child needs chamomilla. Now, chamomilla happens to be a tea, but this is homeopathic chamomilla. The child will be extremely irritable, shrieking with pain, say. And so in the proving, or in the well, I'll mention proving in a minute. Belladonna is known to cause such severe pain that the patient shrieks or cries out in pain. So it's that way with all our medicines, and we have a couple thousand medicines. So I mentioned the word proving. Now, in a proving, we have a small group, usually between 10 and 30 people, male and female, and we give the homeopathic medicine to them daily until they begin to manifest symptoms. And then we stop giving it to them and just wait. And every day they write down the symptoms that they're experiencing. Now, what's interesting is that the symptoms that the prover, in this case, the subject of the investigation, the symptoms comprise various levels. They include the physical symptoms, physical sensations, and they include emotions and mind symptoms. By mind symptoms, I mean the ability or the inability to, say, concentrate or to study or things like that. And emotional, it could produce irritability, could produce sadness, and so on. So all these symptoms then are carefully written down. And after about 30 days, they're examined. The proving is ended, and all the proving symptoms are taken together and analyzed. And sometimes the symptoms that have been produced by the medicine can run to hundreds and hundreds of symptoms. So, for example, salt, sodium chloride. Everybody gets sodium chloride, salt, in their diet every day, whether or not they sprinkle salt on them, on their food, because salt's in most foods. So salt tastes a certain way, and that's about it. But in the homeopathic proving, salt, we call it natrum muriaticum, which is Latin for salt, produce hundreds and hundreds of symptoms, which is astounding considering everybody's taking in salt every day. But these symptoms cover the gambit from mental, emotional, and physical. So it turns out that Natrum muriaticum, otherwise known as salt, is one of the bellwether medicines we have for chronic grief, as well as many other things. But let's talk about grief. So I'm reminded of a woman who came in many years ago complaining of migraine headaches. And so I asked her, well, when did they begin? She said, well, she mentioned a number, 7, 8, 9 years ago, I forget. And then I said, well, what was going on at that time? At that point, she began to cry and she said, I lost my son in Iraq. So the fact that she was still grieving 9 or 10 years later to the point of tears suggested that the grief was unresolved. Also, the symptoms of her headaches or migraines corresponded with Natrum muriaticum. So, incidentally, people who need Natrum muriaticum often crave salt, which is ironic. So I gave her Natrum muriaticum. And when I saw her again about a month later, her headaches had diminished significantly. They were less frequent, less intense, and they didn't last as long. And her mood was better. The grief being more or less resolved until it was a memory. She'll never lose the memory of her son, but it wasn't debilitating. So this suggests that in her case, the headaches were the result of unresolved grief. And we find this often to be true, that there's an emotional cause of most illness. The mind is affected, and the mind has this tremendous effect on the body. So this goes on and on for hundreds and hundreds of our medicines. Does that help?
Absolutely. I was just thinking all about myself. I was thinking about a mutual friend that we had at the time, Steve Boucher. And he was quite a guy. And I recall vividly with my Alex with me. I was looking for, and I thought there was an overall. There's an overall. I just tagged it that. Maybe it's known as that or not. But it was, I believe it was on anger, is what it was. And I denied having anger, and that was the lie.
Yeah.
So then I became a sulfur person.
Yeah, you should mention what happened when you had this. As I recall, you had rather bad sinusitis.
Yes, yes.
And I gave you one medicine and another, and finally I gave you sulfur. And then you reported, go ahead and tell.
I can breathe.
No, you discharged a rather large lump, a ball of mucus,
Yes.
which was too large to have come down through the sinuses, but it came down anyway.
That's
Remember,
right.
you were astounded.
Yeah.
How can this happen? And I was astounded also.
Right.
But somehow the sulfur stimulated the body to cast off this ball of mucus, which was clogging your nasal passages and causing you pain.
It was a miracle.
Yeah, it was really quite unusual.
And it was also on seems like Black Monday of the stock market in the 80s, and that was the day that shut the markets down. And then it came out of me. I couldn't get it out, but it came out. It came out the back of my throat.
Yeah.
And it was like a small Easter egg. It was.
That's pretty big.
It is, but you got it. That's
Yeah.
and
So
Alex was part of that.
That was one of the more unusual results because there's kind of no explaining that, how the body could expel something that large through an orifice, which is much smaller than a small Easter egg.
Right.
But it did it. The body did it. And after that, you were okay, as I recall. Your sinuses.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's still a miracle.
Yeah.
Interesting. Forgot all about that, Karl.
Yeah.
Bring it on. Of course, now, the scene, though, of my not having any anger, it wasn't really the anger, it was parts of things of behavior that can be associated with anger, I think. And when I said, no, that doesn't bother me, and that's when Alex woke up and said, yes, it does. It does matter. I remember. He was telling me you everything about me.
Yeah. Well, often we see that people who have, I'm not speaking of you, but we see people who have out and out anger, which is visible to everyone. And then there's a whole class of people that do not show their anger. It's sort of buried. And when you bury your anger, you're burying a negative energy, a very negative, destructive energy. And this negative, destructive energy can cause all kinds of illnesses, probably including cancer, although it's difficult to prove any of these things, but we see this when we take the case. So anger is right up there as one of the major causes of illness. Another one is grief, which I mentioned. Strangely enough, there's a homeopathic medicine called coffea in Latin. And that's got the opposite. That's got people who get worse from joy. Now, how does that happen? So, again, it happens like this. Say a mother believes her son, or is reported that her son has been lost in a war. And she's despondent, of course, grieving, of course. But then one day, the military gets in touch with her and says, we made a mistake. He's alive. And he shows up. And the shock of seeing him when she thought he was dead overwhelms her so much that she gets ill, might even cause a heart attack. So the emotions are often the key to the illness. That makes sense?
Certainly does.
Yeah.
It certainly does. And I'd like to recommend to all my listeners of this, if you've got an anger problem, you need to look deep and have someone to help you look deep.
Right.
Very much so. And call Karl. Karl, you're up. Tell me how you, I guess, where you're set up mostly on the phone of this.
Yeah, these days it's I'm sort of dwindling, and in years, so I do some work via Zoom or FaceTime, take cases that way. It seems to work out all right.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. That's the best. I can't think of anything more than that. It is, what I've got now, I guess, working, and that was a bit of a trauma during my SNL days, and it was part of what I had to go through, what I all went through. And it was worthwhile. And I'm still working on it.
Yeah. I think it's important to follow up on that. I would say that our tendency as average human beings is to strongly dislike our illness, strongly want it to go away. But there's another way, which is to treat it as an unexpected gift. And the illness has brought up a chance to heal on a deeper level than just the physical, so that it's possible to look on an illness as an opportunity to resolve hidden opinions, hidden beliefs, things like that. Make any sense?
Good. It sure does. For me, it does. I've been convinced over the years a number of times, and most of them we can remember. And
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe you're still around.
As of today, yes.
It is. So I'm really pleased that I'm doing this, because I can take your science and your what you know in your book and what you've put into the book.
Yeah. Could you show the cover of the book?
Sure.
There we go.
How is
Yeah.
it?
Let me comment on that. The
Okay.
small doses, these medicines, which come from the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the mineral kingdom, they are prepared in such a way that they're diluted and diluted and diluted again. And each time they're diluted, they're shaken vigorously, either by hand or by machine. So we call this process potentization, potency. The medicine is diluted, shaken, diluted, shaken, diluted, shaken, until there are no discernible molecules left. So what is left? We posit that there's a subtle energy left in the vial, which has had all these dilutions and hard shakes, which we call succussions. So this substance is an energetic substance. Homeopathic medicine is energetic medicine. And since it acts and works on the body, we presume that it's working on a very subtle level. So we have this flesh and blood physical body, and apparently we also have a more subtle body, a more energetic body. And we believe that, along with the founder of homeopathy, Samuel Hahnemann, we believe that this subtle energy, which Hahnemann, the founder, called the vital force, is disturbed. It's not running smoothly. Think of the acupuncture meridians. So these meridians get distorted. The energy is not flowing properly. Now, the correct homeopathic medicine is going to go in and make an adjustment to the distorted energy flow. And when this vital force, this energetic force, is normalized so that it's running smoothly and harmoniously, it then starts to affect the body, and the body begins to cure itself. So it's working from a subtle level down to a physical level. And that's how we believe our medicines work. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. Um, and as you
So
know,
let me go a little further. For example, we use substances which in the gross form are poisonous. Let's take arsenic. Arsenic is obviously a well-known poison. And in a large dose, it'll kill you. In a small dose, you can tolerate it. Some people used to even eat small doses in order to build up their immunity. But in tiny, tiny homeopathic doses, where there's no molecules left of the arsenic, it becomes a highly potent, highly curative medicine. And it's prescribed on certain symptoms. Now, take something else. Take a snake venom. We have a number of snake venoms, different snakes, different venoms. But if the snake gave it to you through a bite, could easily kill you. But when it's prepared homeopathically, it becomes a highly curative substance. So it goes on and on like this. We use phosphorus. Phosphorus is found in the head of a match, and phosphorus is a poison. But when it's prepared homeopathically, it becomes a highly effective medicine. So we also use things that are not toxic, like calcium. Calcium carbonate is a very famous homeopathic medicine. But you can go to the health food store and buy calcium carbonate, and supposedly it'll help you with your nutrition. But in the homeopathic form, it has the ability to cure many, many different symptoms, many different illnesses. So there's this extraordinary panoply or range of substances that we use. And when they're prepared homeopathically, they become highly curative.
Karl, how would you like to have my listeners, find your book? I know it's on Amazon. I bought a copy recently.
It's on Amazon. That's about all I can tell you. It's on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good place to put it. Quite a bit. And I've got my audios ready. If you're ready, are you ready?
I'm ready.
It's I want to tell my listeners they had a good time today, learned something, and you're going to give Dr. Karl Robinson some of your energy, I think, to work with. I want to thank my listeners for tuning in, for searching for integrity. And of course, for our guest, Dr. Karl Robinson. And so long and happy trails to all.